youth development is key. Getting the youth to see that they're going through their phases and they're able to see things and process things and figure out, as a teen, this is where I'm going to position myself when it comes to social justice. When I become an adult, this is how I'll position myself when it comes to social justice.
Thank you so much. And then I'll turn to Lydia. What does social justice mean to you?
Hi, everyone. So Nadia, snaps, yes to all that you said. When I think about social justice, I think about a million things, but we don't have a million minutes. So, it's really an acknowledgement of, power constructs, AKA racism, AKA sexism, ageism, all of those things. It's acknowledging that those things exist, the historical and the current legacy of all of that. It's allowing space, especially for young people, to let that, internalize and circle, and adults, all of us doing this work. It's like a breaking down and a building up. It's acknowledging equity and what people need. I think it's really important for all people. When I think about social justice, is thinking about this internal work that we need to do for ourselves and each other, the internalized depression, breaking those mental change and knowing unapologetically, I am the bomb, I am beautiful, my very being is just, it matters. Breaking down that internalized superiority, right? Becoming an ally and really living into what it means to be an accomplice. It I think, creates space for people to feel anger, to feel rage, but then to also heal. All of that is important, and all of that is social justice. So I'll stop there, but those are some things that I think about.
Thank you so much. And then I'll ask Zainabu, who is our youth activist, to tell me what she thinks social justice means to her.
Can you guys hear me? I know I'm at school, so I have my headphones in. Okay. But I don't know, I see social justice as more, it's so abstractive to me. I see it as, it's so objective. You know what I mean? It's such an abstract thing. I see it no more than you could say just the fight for equality of all. It's the fight to dismantle systematic racism. It's the fight to dismantle social hierarchy. You know what I mean? It's just, to put it simple terms, it's a movement to make sure that everyone is everyone. No person is higher than the other. No person matters more than the other person. It's the fight to end all of that oppression that people have imposed on others throughout years and years of just so many terrible things that's happened to people. So, in simple terms.
And then Michelle with Imagine Inglewood If, what does social justice mean to you?
Hello, everyone. Social justice, what does it mean to me? I think, when I think about social justice, the best phrase or term I come up to describe what it really means to me is really quoting the words of the late Representative John Lewis, who said, it's good trouble. Social justice is good trouble, which we all know is a kind of trouble that you can be proud of. Social justice means to me being active with mind, with voice, with body, to fight for and ensure that people who look like you, as well as people who don't look like you and don't have the same background on you, are able to enjoy a quality of life that includes equity and access and participation and rights. As our young sister just said, I think it can mean so many things. And I think in this present day, it looks like so many things, but social justice is really about how you choose to stand up about something that you care about something that you know is not right, whether that is through action, through being an ally, being a supporter, whether that's virtually or in person. But it's really about getting in some good trouble. That's what it means to me.
I love that. I love good trouble and good problems to have. So the Black Lives Matter movement began in response to Trayvon Martin in 2013. They've been on the forefront of fighting for equity and social justice ever since then. A lot has changed since 2013, but a lot of it remains the same. In 2020, we saw a global response to another death of an unarmed Black man where people all over the country stepped out of their pandemic bubble. It was an incredible thing to watch. And they stood in solidarity. There was an estimated 15 to 26 million people that participated in these protests. I think there might be someone that is speaking, if you can put on mute. Okay, I did it. So, in response to this oppression, in response to injustices and trauma, Black Lives Matter is now one of the largest movements in the country's history. So I want to turn to Lydia and ask, how has activism shifted in the past 5 years? What do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10 years? It's just changed so much since 2013.
I spent so much time thinking about answering this question, Casey, but a quote came to mind from Asada Shakur, and she talks about, she says, nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who are oppressing them. And when I think about that quote, I think about like the words that come to mind are like boldness and unapologetic power. And I'm thinking about activism being something that, instead of appealing, so for example, right, women didn't get the right to vote because men were just like, okay, you can vote. They had to do a lot of things. When I think to actually get that right, they had to fight to get that right. When I think about activism now, I think of it even more bold than that. It's almost like a taking, it's a standing, it's like there's more action, there's more doing. I feel like it's more radical. And I think part of that is because people are able to see not just the communities that are enduring the trauma, but people are able to see because of social media and stuff, which I think is another question. And so it's allowing people to be more explicit and to be more bold. And I hope that continues. I hope that counter narrative is listened to, believed, is out there, and people are able to be more bold in their activism. And I'm not trying to sound violent when I say take, but it's more of like, I matter and these issues matter. So we are going to talk about it. We are going to use this language. We are going to say white supremacy is not good. We are going to lean into those things. And that's what I was thinking about when I was reading this question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to turn to the young person and ask, she had said to me, her goal is to be the best activist she can be. And I wanted to know what that meant to her, but she actually went and canvassed and knocked on doors in every home. So I kind of would like to turn that over to Zainabu and talk about her experience and how activism, what it means to be a good activist. I know you're in school right now.
No, it's fine. I'm in like a corner of school. So like I feel like activism, it used to be so concrete back then. You know what I mean? Like when you said activist, you would go outside, have posters, start rallying, you know what I mean? Like, but now it is so simple. Like I started last year from now when it all started when one of my friends was shot and passed away, and I wanted to see more from my community, and that's where I take my activism. I root from like the root of all of our problems, because growing up all I've seen is, you know, pitch perfect childhoods on Disney Channel, on Nickelodeon, but I wouldn't see any of that near me. You know what I mean? I'll be like, how come? I see activism as like advocating for not just your people, but like people for all. You know what I mean? Like me being an activist, I see the definition of me fighting for my friends, my family, my community, so we can be in the area where we don't have to go through trauma every single day, that we don't have to experience um, different things from the city next door. Like we're surrounded by so many privileged, predominantly white towns around us, and then how come this little city goes through all the trauma that I see nowhere else around me? You know what I mean? So I feel like activism has like enabled people to do so much, from social media movements. You know what I mean? Like kind of like Lydia was saying, you don't just hear about the things that happen next door, you see it due to social media. Like I have I'm able to like enable so many people. I've rallied 300, 500, thousands of people within just a couple of days through my phone. Like, that's crazy. I was a middle schooler at the time. A middle schooler is able to activate so many people in so little time just with like my phone. And I feel like it's bringing everyone to the awareness. And I feel like that's how activism has progressed. And I feel like within years to come, it's just going to be so much simpler of really just self-active, like, you know what I mean, self-advocacy. And that's going to turn into something bigger. And I'm just so excited for all of that.
And we're definitely going to talk about that in a little bit, about hashtag activism. What does that mean? How do we get people involved? I want to ask, as we talk about this trauma, after, seeing the unfortunate death of Black men and women on TV and on YouTube, and it's constantly in our face because we need to know about it. I want to talk to Nadia and see, how do we turn trauma into action? I know that UCAN does a lot of work with youth and trauma, so how do you turn that into activism?
So I think Lydia had touched on it as far as like, where do we start in the healing of that trauma? And so we have conversations like this at UCAN with leadership groups that's preparing them for when it's time for them to be an activist, how and where is their role? And so figuring out where you fall in the puzzle and supporting the youth in that process, I think is really important. So being able to identify the hurt, being able to identify how you felt in the moment when you found out that someone you grew up with was murdered and there was no reason behind that murder, and letting them see that this is a temporary place that you are in. So I think for me, understanding that healing, it is important. Having even confrontating conversations of, why did this happen to me? Why did this system feel like they had the right to rob me of a person, of a family member? And so we prepare the youth for conversations like this. And we also let them know that they don't have to be anyone else. They don't have to live anyone else's experiences except for theirs. And so that's how I feel like activism, it starts identifying what was that point of trauma, and where do I fall? What is my power? I feel like technology, like the young lady said, it is powerful. So understanding that there are resources out here, and what is your tool? What are your weapons? If your weapon is public speaking, we're going to make sure you are trained to speak in those environments, be authentically you as a youth, and not feel like you have to do this whole dance with adultism. Like, you are supposed to represent yourself in your authentic garments and be okay with the fact that some adults are uncomfortable hearing this, but this is my activism. I'm going to let you all know I went through this process of healing. I've been trained, I've been equipped, and I'm not just over here irrational and angry. I have a vision as a youth. So UCAN is dedicated to positive youth development. And this is happening even in my position as a youth development coach, the one-on-ones. What do you want to talk about? Let's talk about that trauma. Let us not, cover it up and then try to go into, well, you're a leader. Leaders are wounded as well. That's how they get to that place of leadership, knowing that I'm able to intercede as an activist, and I can come in and fill in the gap in this area. Because some people, when it comes to being activism, an activist, you have to be resilient and be okay with hearing, like, we're not ready to hear that, to be rejected. And so that's what we do. And this is something that I'm like personally dedicated to. Like, I want my youth to know that there are resources, and you have every right to be in conversations like these and to even facilitate conversations like these as well.
I think that really brings me to my next question for Michelle. Since Michelle and I talked about this, and I know that she won't take credit for it, but one of her friends said, they're a community activator instead of a community activist. And I really loved hearing that because it takes all of us to try and promote social justice. So Imagine Angle What If is very specific to one area, right? we talk about social justice in a very broad sense, activism in a broad sense, and usually using social media. So I want to ask Michelle, when Nadia says, what is my power? I want to know how we promote youth leadership within our own neighborhoods, starting small in our own backyard. How do we teach our young people to grow into citizen leaders? And I know there is a very specific program with Imagine Englewood If. So how do we start small?
Well, first, starting small, you definitely have to just start, right? Oh man, where do I want to begin with that? I think it's very important. I'm not sure who exactly said it, but it's about having youth involved the entire step of the way. I feel like a lot of times when, as adults, right, we can be victims of adultism, in which, sometimes we really say, we give options and say, X, Y, and Z is how we're going to move forward with these youth activities. All right, youth, choose just one you like, versus presenting a problem, giving information to young people about the problem, and then just openly asking them, what do you think we should do about it? Like, how do we give young people the power? I became involved with Imagine Englewood If when I was in high school. And it literally was about getting young people from the area to voice their opinions about issues in the area. And it was literally so broad like that because at the time the organization had fundraised to literally send teenagers to Washington, D.C. to talk to congressmen about issues in the community. And what's so crazy about where I am now as the executive director and where I was then as a youth volunteer is that I thought that was insane. I thought, you want me to speak up about my community? What exactly do you want me to talk about? And it was a matter of, well, what do you care about? What would you want to change? And I didn't even realize that platform existed. So when we think about how we can promote youth leadership, is inviting young people to the table, giving them a platform to express what they feel and what changes they want to see, and not predicting, that we know everything that they're going through, because we don't. And so it's very important. I know, and Imagine what if we include young people in every process, right? I just really believe saying we are a youth serving organization. Every single thing that we do involves young people. When we're hiring a new staff member, young people are part of the hiring process. When we are saying, okay, we want to address like the low life expectancy in Englewood, we want to address the barriers to care, to healthcare in the community, we always ask our young people, what do you think about this? And what would you do to change? And then we develop projects around how they can get involved in that. So our Growing Citizen Leaders, which is a program I'm a product of, it's literally focused on social and environmental justice projects that the youth identify, that we provide them with knowledge about organizing and advocacy and just history about the community, and then help them build that project to find a solution or to lead a campaign, whether that's lead poisoning prevention, whether that's healthy living in the community, or whether that's, launching a social media campaign around something that they care about. But it's literally giving them that platform so that they can activate how they feel, activate their peers, activate their families, activate their community. And that can be done at so many different levels, whether it's a project, whether it's doing something on your block. And we teach them that it doesn't have to look one type of way, but you have this platform to make change.
Yeah, I remember we had a conversation before about, what activism means. And I had said something that, I don't regret saying it, but parts of activism are boring. It's not always at the front line. It's not always on the streets. Parts of it are really, you have to do the behind the scenes work. And that's why I really appreciate, the very localized, giving them that platform and activating their own community, and in whatever way they find fit. So we talked just really quickly about, social media so far. And, with the introduction of hashtag activism through, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you have the media platform to do, we see a shift in how we organize. A lot of organization comes through word of mouth in the past. And now we can subscribe to newsletters or set up Google alerts or tweets or text messages to inform us of the time and place of the next protest. And oftentimes during this pandemic, it's, the next protest is down at Grant Park, you have to wear a mask. And I think that's really powerful to be like, we are in one community and we have to protect each other. So let's, stand up together in a safe way. So I want to first go to Zainabu about this because I want to know what effect social media and technology has made on advancing social justice. I see it as it is more of a little d democratic, little d democratic inaccessibility. So Zainabu, in it, like you have gone past the social media, you've been on the front line. In addition to those things, what have you done with social media and how do you encourage your peers to participate?
So like I'm 15, so I'm very, 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 very active on social media. I used it all. I use Facebook, I use Twitter, I use Snapchat. So with my events, my protests, anything that we were doing, I put it on my social media, and all I did was just DM it all my friends. Please share this. You know what I mean? My first protest, I was so surprised. I was expecting 50 people. I sent it to one of everyone in my list, and then we had thousands show up. And I spoke Providence, and there was over 10 1,000 people. There is, I think, no, 13,000 people who came to the Capitol, and I did this with friends, and I was like, wow, that's the power of social media. So then with that, if I had that response for just attendance, how many people would like to give me input? So with some of my activism, I used to do mental health reform. So I wanted to see Black men have some of the highest rates of mental health, and so many was like just inner city kids. And I wanted to see, you know what I mean? Where does that come from? I did a simple survey, and I interviewed 100 people, and I asked them questions directly. And these people, they ranged from middle school all the way to college students, all types of races, all types of genders. And then what I did with that, I just I asked a series of questions, and with that, I was able to see just from my interview questions and surveys on where all of their poor mental health came from, where that came from. And this was all through social media. All I did was simply, who wants to participate in this? You know what I mean? So it is so important that like we use it. And I know there's people who don't have access to social media. And with that, I've done things door to door. I've canvassed. I've done things through newspapers, and I use that as an outlet. But simply just using social media and having a social media for all of your activism will increase your numbers astronomically. Like it is insane. Like I still don't believe how many people have came to all of my stuff. It's still crazy because it's happened months ago. But just through a social media post and just asking a friend or maybe 10, please repost this, and how many reposts I've got. It's insane. Like I've had outreach all the way to New Jersey with some of my stuff, and I've been interviewed by people in different states and different areas just from simple outreach. And I feel like it does you such a great deed just using the internet, and it's insane. And like I'm so excited to see how technology will take us and the activism world into like how far we can like expand our voices.
And can you talk a little bit about your basketball tournaments and your gallery?
Okay, yeah. So with activism, everyone looks at that as protest and you know what I mean, just being very radical. But with me, I see, you know what I mean, my city is composed of so many minorities, like, you know what I mean, Black men. They have the lowest rates of attending college. You know what I mean? And I'm like, why is that? How can we hire that? You know what I mean? I'm friends with them personally. These are my friends, my family, my acquaintances, my classmates. And I was like, what are they into? They all love sports. They're very good at basketball. So what I did, I was like, they're very interested in basketball. And this was around like when everything shut down. So there wasn't really anything to do. In my city, it's not always the safest. So we would go to the parks because that's all we have to do. There's nothing really around here. So I was like, well, they can't just play basketball because they'll be harassed by the police, which happens almost every single day. And we had a huge problem with that, was police harassing the was black youth in general. So I was like, okay, I'll rent out the park, and I created this space for people just to go. And I had basketball tournaments. This is all free of admission. You would play and show off your talents. I provided free food, free beverages, and I just gave people a very safe and like fun experience. And with that, I invited like college basketball recruits. I invited college coaches, and they came out and they saw the people play, and I didn't even tell them. So then I've connected so many people with like the coaches at Boston University. I've connected people from Providence College, just like an assortment of colleges, just to connect them with the youth, because I was like, me doing this is helping them like 1 foot out the door. You know what I mean? You already have 1 foot, you can do the next one by yourself. And this is giving people motivation as well as hope. And I feel like it's as simple as that. I've done an art show. And with my art show, all I did was give
Like I'm back at work.
I've given Black youth a platform to voice how they felt, because not everyone's good at speaking, and not everyone could just make a long speech of how they feel. Some people are just can like do that through arts. So I've had poets come out. I've had painters come out, like artists. I've had rappers, because I know a lot of people, they just love to rap and they voice their emotion and pain in their lyrics. And I've had people sing, and I've had people do interpretive dance, and through that, it demonstrated their emotion in a way that they can't unlock any other way. You know what I mean? Through just speaking or through writing, because not everyone's able to do that. So figuring out how to advocate for people in different ways, I feel like, is so vital, because now people who aren't able to do one thing, they're able to voice their opinion in another way. And through all of this, I just did this by, what do you guys want to see? What are you guys interested in? Just posting random things on my Instagram page, on my story, doing polls on Instagram. Are you guys interested in this and this? What would you guys be into? You know what I mean? Asking them, the people I'm helping, what are you guys interested in? And through this, I feel like social media is such an easy approach, because people aren't that every day. You know what I mean? They don't see anything scary about that. It's just comes so easy to them. And with that, they feel more motivated to do it. So I feel like that's where the root of so many of my activism works, because I'm engaging them in things they understand. They understand basketball, and they understand that is their only way to get into college. That's what they see. So if I'm able to enable that, I feel like I'm doing so much justice with my advocacy and activism through that.
Isn't she so impressive? I want to turn to Lydia, because when we talked before about this coalition, you talked about being a conscious activist as a youth practitioner. And part of the unlearning experience is understanding the perspectives and experiences of others as we address our own implicit bias. We know that with social media, it's an important tool for activism. However, it is also riddled with disinformation. So how can literature like the Unlearning Project's Power on Chicago or other literature, how can that serve as a vehicle for social change?
Sure. I'm just still processing all of the things that Zanabu, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, was sharing, but your resume is tight, young lady. You've done so much, my goodness. Yes, so when I think about literature, curriculum, resources, anything that's put on paper, I think of that as being just the beginning, right? As a former teacher, I remember I remember having to like completely throw out. I taught history and for high school social studies. I remember having to completely like throw out the textbook. I didn't get that. Oh, sorry, Siri's talking. I remember having to throw out my textbooks and like really think about how I was engaging youth in the content that I was teaching, because the narrative was one-sided, because I didn't get that education to do that through, unfortunately, my higher education through grad school. I didn't get that. I had to do the internal work to get to a place to see this content, to see this literature as it was. That required me then to think about this counter narrative. I am serving Black and Brown children. My population is BIPOC, 100%. Not saying that this is not important for all people, but it really is important. It's important for all of us, but just making sure that what I am providing is relevant. Now, what's on paper, like I said, is just the beginning. But what was most important was me doing the internal work to learn about my own bias, my own internalized oppression. I am still doing a lot of work on learning a lot of things in regards, because of racism, that make me feel less than or inferior, or, we hear a lot of time, imposter syndrome. There's so much that comes up in not believing that we belong or that we are enough. And having to understand that, like, I need to do that work and able to actualize what is on this paper, or to be able to see that what is on this paper does not represent or is not what my students deserve or need. If I'm not doing that work, I am operating blindly. There's a lot of bias that can come out. I could be teaching youth something inherently harming or traumatizing. And so I think that it's so important as youth practitioners to really think about our own internal work, to do that work so that we are able, when we are, working with youth and other human beings, to really think about how we are engaging them. Are we being culturally responsive? Right? Do we know what that means? Because it's not just a cute phrase. It actually requires a lot of self-work to think about. It is not just an action, it is a way of being and thinking, and it is a constant journey to learn and to unlearn. And so I think it's so important. Power on Chicago was created. It's a toolkit, anti-racism toolkit for youth practitioners. And, in there we talk about like doing this work collectively and really doing this work and thinking about your own, stuff that you need to work through. So it was designed to help you do that collectively. It's hard, but it can't just be, what's on paper. And now I'm a culturally relevant practitioner. That's not it. It's doing the internal work to really be able to like think about the lens in which you are seeing things, to think about your own bias, and to think about how white supremacy has impacted who you are as a practitioner. So it's a constant journey. It's constant work to be able to actualize that literature. I hope that.
Yeah, that's great. I just was really wanting to find a way that, we use social media as a platform for good. Some people don't. So I appreciate hearing more about, the literature that's out there and, the work that goes into it, because it's a lot of work. I think that this kind of goes into what I wanted to ask Michelle about being culturally responsive and responding to the needs of the community. Englewood, unfortunately, gets a pretty bad rap, and it's not all, there's a great community in Englewood. So I know that one other person asked in the chat about how Imagine Englewood If, began. I know it's been around for quite a bit, but who do you partner with? How do you encourage that growth within Englewood, starting from your community and being responsive to the needs in that community?
Whew, let's see. Let's go on this journey. Now, so Imagine What If has been around for over 2 decades. The idea, the passion, and the birth of IEI really is in 1997. But that's when the organization came to be. What really was the activism behind the organization starting was the founders, Ms. Jean Carter Hill and Ms. Helen Arnold Massey. They were educators at Nicholson STEM Academy, which is located on 60th and Peoria. Great school. But at the time, in the late 90s, the building that used to hold Englewood Hospital was actually located a block and a half away from the school. And the youth in the school came to Miss Jean Carter Hill and Miss Helen Arnold Massey. I'm just like, we are sick and tired of walking past this big old scary building. What are they gonna do with it? You know, we don't know what's happening inside the building. Some people go in. Like, that's just like, what can we do about this big scary building that it has no purpose in the organization that we have to walk past every single day to get to and from school. And from there, that was the youth saying, listen, we're sick of this and we want to do something about it. Can you help us? And having those adults to really say, you know what, yes, we can. And so it really began around organizing those young people, raising money to get bus fare and to order buses to take the young people down to City Hall to voice their opinions. Like, that is where really the original activism of the organization started. Because that's what the community, which young people are in the community, right? What they said they wanted change to happen. And so fast forward to last summer where, you know, May 31st, there was looting that happened really all around the city, but happened in the Inglewood area. And it was really devastating. It was really devastating in the sense that Inglewood has experienced decades of disinvestment. Things have burned down, things have shut down, buildings have shut down, have been neglected for years. And so the businesses that we do have, which we don't have a lot, they were closed the day after all of that looting. The grocery stores were closed. The city showed us that, you know, there was a priority to protect, you know, neighborhoods up north. There was a priority to protect downtown stores and things such as that, when the community has to come together to protect the grocery stores in our area from, you know, being closed. But at this time, after the looting, like, everybody kind of shut down and you couldn't get a bottle of water in our community. And again, it was this idea of like, we're not going to wait for the city to come save us. What can we do? We asked the city, our neighbors, what do you need? We asked our families, our young people, what do you need? And food. We need diapers. We need feminine hygiene products because the Walgreens is closed. We need household items. You know, the cities, you know, everyone's giving us these reusable masks, but we don't have detergent to wash them in, right? Dishwasher liquid cleaning supplies. Like, these were the things that the community was telling us was needed. And so we literally developed, we started, it was developing as it was happening, our Inglewood Strong program, where we put together these food and these essential items inside these boxes that we call the Inglewood Strong boxes, and distributed them throughout the community. And what is great is, you know, about that program is we did it from an equitable lens, right? So you have a family, so there's a set standard amount of tissue, paper towels, bottles of water, food, hygiene kits that we put inside of these boxes. But we're not going to give a family who has, you know, a family of 8 the same amount of food and water that we're going to give a family of 2, right? So we had to really take time and bring in as much as help as we could to make sure that we were distributing not only what the community need, but the amount of resources that these families need within this community. And to really, I just want to tap on the power of social media, because at that time, like, we didn't have, you know, a newsletter going out saying, hey, we have this Inglewood Strong program. We were primarily using Instagram and Facebook. Instagram and Facebook to let people know that we were collecting these donations, where they could drop it off. Please share, please share, please share. That is one a way to really activate somebody in the most minimal way. People sharing our posts. And our Inglewood Strong program brought in over $90,000. Mind you, there was no targeted emails going out saying, fund us, fund us. This was a social media, just our presence showing how we were packing the boxes. Our young people that we have involved in the process took over social media, like really promoting what we were doing. Like I said, we raised over $90,000, received over $50,000 in in-kind donations, and we're able to serve 833 families, giving out over 85,000 pounds of food and over 50,000 essential items. Right, all of this was happening, is grassroots happening from our people in response to what was happening in the city. It's really us standing up with our community partners, which spans from youth other organizations. It included the police department, right? And more so their CAPS office and the connections they have, faith-based leaders, violence interrupters. Like these are people who are able to identify like who needs these resources, and we're communicating amongst each other so that no one gets missed. That if you're not on social media, you're not following Imagining What If on Instagram and Facebook, if you're not seeing our flyers about that, but word of mouth is really spreading, and a lot of it stemmed from our community partners being able to look and say, hey, Imagining What If is doing this on social media. Let me give them a call and see how we can and get engaged in this work. And it was just a very powerful way of serving the community from the community.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And talking about resources and the power of Englewood, or power of social media, I do want to make sure I'm acknowledging that, you know, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, right? And something that, you know, it's an ongoing crisis, but, you know, there feels like some hope because there's a vaccine, and, you know, we're trying to see how that rolls out. However, there is no vaccine for racism. And something Nadia and I spoke about for a while is self-care. You know, we wanted to talk about how, you know, Nadia and I talked about, she said, you know, it's almost a badge of honor to be overworked. So I want to talk to Nadia about how do we understand that self-care is a priority in you are advocating for others, but you need to protect your own space.
Yeah, I always go back to the saying of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if you are shattered, you know, you got to be honest with yourself. Where is my home? How is my home looking? Before I say I'm an advocate for you, I'm going to be a social, you know, innovator for you. You really do have to take a perspective of, let me step back in my home and make sure that what I'm saying is aligning and it's not depleting me, because I love what I do. I love working with the youth. I love my area. I'm from the west side of Chicago, North Lawndale. And so it brings me joy to still be doing this work. However, self-care is like that boundary for me. Like, okay, I feel me getting agitated. I think I'm getting short with people. And sometimes going into social service, that is that mindset that, ooh, all these hours I'm working, I'm really doing this, I'm being effective. But if people experience you and it's not a good experience, are you really doing it right? You know, what is the spirit behind it? What is the motive behind it? Is it for you to be exhausted and saying like, hey guys, I can barely sit down. And so I'm being effective as an activist. I'm being effective as a youth provider. And so for myself, that's how I advocate for me. I make sure that, you know, what I'm saying is lining up to what I'm doing in my personal life. So if I'm advocating for anyone that's in this field to get therapy, I got my therapist. Anyone to say like, you need community, I have my community, I have my tribe. So really being honest, like, this is not easy work. Listen, if you are serving with your heart and not just your words, like, you got to be honest and saying like, this is hard. I legit had to start using my PTO. It's not going nowhere until I use it. So I had to start letting my supervisor know, hey, I have to take this off for Nadia. Like, and don't feel like you even have to have a reason, like, just because. And so getting into the practice of self-care, it really has even got me to appreciate like what I'm doing, and not just like, this is my responsibility because I am from North Lawndale. North Lawndale doesn't have a great reputation either. And so like, you know, really being in tune with like, with everything that I do, I have to take care of myself. I have to create boundaries. So if my work day is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and I'm coming on 4:50, this UCAN phone is going to be turned off. No one is going to have to tell me, Nadia, I'm noticing that you're not interacting with the pleasant spirit, because I'm going to be in tune with myself. Emotional intelligence, it is so important. How do you navigate and maintain relationship, even with this work that we do? And self-care is a part of that's my EQ. navigation. So it's really important to set those boundaries, to know, like, I need to step away from the work because there will always be something happening. There's going to always be problems. There's going to always be a call to feel like I have to be here. You don't have to be in every meeting. You don't have to be in every conversation. You really just need to create a balance, even in this pandemic, and knowing that self-care, that's a gift to you. So that's how I feel like it's really important with the work that we do. Like, in your home, you got to make sure that you are solid. And if you're not solid, it's okay to step back. Someone else is going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something I've learned from all four of you is you can only control what's within your reach. And I think that also goes back to Lydia's point of doing the work on yourself, recognizing what your implicit bias is, and then doing the work from there. I want to make sure I'm keeping track of time. And I had a question for Zainabu, which is, and it goes back to social media. And if you have any questions, please put them in the box. I am very happy that we had everyone here today. Zainabu, how do you make sure that your messaging is focused? It's not just social media, but it's how you are messaging that is getting responses. How do you focus that?
I feel like definitely through education, just because I feel like with most of the things I do, the people in my community, they don't really understand the cause. So I have to do the cause and effect. I let them know this is the cause and this is how it affects everything. This is the root of the problems that you're facing through that. And I feel like through that education, people have a better understanding, and then it gravitates people to, oh, well, how can I change this? How can I affect, you know what I mean? What's happening around us? How can I affect the cause? And through that, I feel like it really, it focuses people on, this is what we're doing. This is how I can help do this. And this is how I can help change that. And I feel like through social media, it's very easy just to educate people within sharing posts on Instagram, sending out emails, newsletters, and all things like that, and even making pamphlets and educating people. Here's this take back. You've seen this. Now this is what you can do on your own. And I feel like that's what I've done. It's been very effective so far.
Remember when we spoke, you said, being a good activist is also being a good community member, and tying together with other members how this makes an impact on them. Like, what does this have to do with your life? It might not be the immediate thing, but how can we relate this to you? And I think that education, it's always, I think this ties into all four of your organizations with Michelle's e-learning support hub and Lydia's all this material, all the literature that we can learn about, and Nadia's work on the ground floor, working with kids and making sure that they know that they're loved and that they're cared for. So I think all of you, if anyone has questions that they want to answer or ask, or Michelle, Nadia, Lydia, Zainabu, if there's anything you want to talk about, how we can support you, how we can partner. Again, I'm going to send out to everyone contact lists, but if there's anything you want to share about that part, how we can work together.
I think for me, first of all, thank you, Big Brother, Big Sister, for creating this space. Was so happy. A good friend of mine who worked for you all, Paris Jackson, brought me to the table. So thank you for that. But for me, it's realizing that what's happening to young people in Inglewood is not happening in Inglewood. And I really want to get away, especially now we have this beautiful access to all this virtual world, to get away from working in silos, right? Like some of us are on the same fight towards things that we're leading our young people to. And so I really want to stay more connected, like across communities, across neighborhoods, across, race, across backgrounds, like how we're just stronger that way. And so for me, I'm completely open. Anybody can reach out to me, Instagram, Facebook. I really don't email me, text me, like all these things. I'm completely open for ways in which how our young people can join with your young people, whether that's like just hosting workshops or trainings or taking field trips together. I think I just want to not only build more community across communities and doing this work, but let's build community amongst young people from different neighborhoods, right? So when it's time to be loud about something, when it's time to take to the street to organize, like we know we are pulling from a source that touches so many young people. And I really want to do more work towards that. Imagining What If wants to do more work to that. So when thinking about how you can be louder about something, feel free to reach out to us. I'm 100% down.
That's great. Yeah, so I think that also brings me to, I want to start a newsletter for everyone on here so that we can stay connected and share those resources like from Imagining What If, because, you know, like you said, North Side education and South Side organization are not the same thing. It's not equitable. And that's not just to call out one area of Chicago. It's just, you know, walking into schools, you see a difference. So I thank everyone for joining us today. If you have any flyers you want me to include in the next follow-up, which would be, you know, hold me to Friday. So Friday, I will send everyone that information and contact, and, you know, just send me what, you know, any resources you want me to share so that we can also share with our families.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this too, like our organization, we have so many different programs for youth, in particular, the one that I work with, I service youth that have experienced any violence or trauma and witness. Like I've really been intentional with the witnessing part because people don't understand that that is a form of trauma, to see something happen right in front of you. So if you have any youth that you feel like would benefit from my programs, and also collaborating. I really enjoyed myself today learning about the different organizations, and just staying in contact with each other as well.
I apologize to everyone. I just realized in the chat box that you were only able to send things to me. So now it's everyone publicly and directly. So it's a new thing to me. I apologize for that. But thank you so much to our presenters. A few people said that in the box, so thank you. If any other organizations have anything about how we can find you, and Lydia, I know that you work with the Power on Chicago, so that's a huge wealth of resources if you want to share that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. It's absolutely free. It helps kind of guide you through your own internal work to kind of be able to do this work. And we, again, just to reiterate, doing it collectively or reaching out to me for support and doing that. Happy to do that. But thank you for the platform, and I'm all about coalition building. I feel like, you know, power. So I am definitely open to, you know, all of that collaboration and doing this work collective. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
And I want to give a shout out to you, Zainabu, so, for our youth activists on the line.
I just feel like, sorry guys, like I said, I was at school, but I just really appreciate being able to speak at like a platform of so many educated, like Black and just a diverse group of people. And like I really inspired to do the amount of like activism you guys have done throughout your lives, and I just find it like I just want to reach for more, and it's just like so inspirational. So I really, if you need any youth aspect or anything like that, or just in general, collaborate with me, literally, like I love it. I love Chi-Town. Like I've always wanted to go, and I plan on doing like activism projects there too. So if anyone would like to connect with me, please don't hesitate. Like please do. Like I insist. Like reach out to me, and I'll be amazing. Like I would love to work with you guys.